Estamos de volta recebendo hoje Christopher Diddy, pesquisador sênior da Harvard Graduate School of Education, discutindo o impacto da inteligência artificial na educação. So, Chris, we are back here with you with this lovely conversation about AI. Christopher, much has been said about personalized learning through AI. How do you think we can use this technology to meet students' individual needs while also promoting collaborative learning experiences?
So, a little background about my work in this area. The United States to date has funded 27 national artificial intelligence institutes, and most of those have a particular sector of society that they're trying to help. So, for example, there's 5 institutes that focus on agriculture and farming. There's 4 institutes, I think, that focus on public health and wellness. And there's 5 institutes that focus on education. I'm the Associate Director for Research for the National AI Institute on Adult Learning and Online Education, which is really the one on workforce. It's on workforce upskilling and reskilling, because we know that AI is changing the nature of jobs. Some jobs are disappearing, new jobs are appearing, even jobs that are going to continue. Having an AI partner will mean that the human being needs different skills. And so our institute works to develop tools and strategies for helping with this upskilling and reskilling. But there are 4 other national AI institutes in the US that are pre-college, that are focused on different aspects of children's education. And I would say that all of these institutes, all 5 of the education institutes, are concerned about personalization, because we know that one size doesn't fit all in learning. In fact, I would say that the population in classrooms that I see in the United States is far more diverse now than it was a generation ago. And I think that's true in many countries. And personalization is a difficult thing for AI to do. It's actually part of what these institutes call foundational AI, where you need a breakthrough in the way that AI works in order to be effective with personalizing. Because by personalization, we don't mean just adaptive education. You're asked a question, you get it right or wrong, that shapes what the next question is. That's part of personalization, but real personalization is having voice and choice in what you're learning and how you're learning and when you're learning. Sort of like Montessori schools, where children have a lot of voice and choice. And that voice and choice AI can help with, but it's not easy. It's a major area of theoretical challenge in the industry.
True. This is hard, but very important. Not only trying, I think we're going to find a way. So with the rise of AI-based educational technologies, what do you believe are the main ethical considerations that schools and teachers need to keep in mind when implementing these tools?
So I and colleagues co-authored an article on AI and ethics that appeared a few years ago. In the material that's circulated with this program will be my professional website. And that is a repository for a lot of my work, speeches, articles, and it's all public, it's all available. I hope you'll come and grab whatever is useful for you. It's just an opportunity. And that article is one of the resources on there. And what it points out is that there are many sources of bias that can occur within AI. People tend to focus on the algorithm. They say, well, AI is given these rules that it follows for how to make a decision. And if those rules are biased, which unfortunately they often are, then it's going to make biased decisions. But the data set that AI uses to develop the rules, the data can also be biased. It can be biased towards having a lot of data about men, but not much about women, which happens in medicine, or it can be biased in terms of having a lot of data about privileged people, but not much about marginalized people, which happens in many data sets. So that's a problem with bias. And then these AI is trained on the World Wide Web, and the World Wide Web is full of misinformation, full of biases, full of other unethical things like other people's intellectual property that's not really labeled as such. So there are troubling ethical aspects to AI. And one of the things that happens when people are concerned about that is they just don't use it. They say this is possibly biased. It's stealing my information. It's not really personalizing to me, and I think I'll stay away from it. They don't trust it, in other words. And in education, if you're learning from somebody else, you really have to trust them, trust their knowledge, trust their ethics. So it's somehow we have to help AI become trustworthy enough that people realize that it has controls on it. It's not perfect, but it's good enough for many kinds of educational tasks, and that we can go ahead and use it with some confidence.
Very, very important. Very, very important. You have experience as both researcher and advisor to government and companies. So how do you think AI can help bridge learning science research with its effective implementation in classrooms?
So one of the challenges in ed tech companies is what people want to buy. So I have advised many smaller companies that were trying to get started. Many of our students, for example, in the university are entrepreneurial. They want to do a startup. They want to help society. They want to do something powerful that's based on learning sciences that can improve our educational system, which both in the US and in Brazil and in many other countries is really based on educational models that in some cases are up to a century old. They don't really reflect our current knowledge about teaching and learning. But there's a problem, and that is that of all the companies that make money in education, almost all of them make money by automating rather than by innovating. So they say, you need to do quizzes, we'll build a quiz generator for you. You need to do grading, we'll build a way of automating your grading. You need to be able to develop lectures rapidly. We'll give you all these tools for creating lectures. And there's nothing wrong with automating if what you're doing is really powerful. But when a lot of the stuff that we do in education now is very outdated and documented in research is not very effective, automating it is a faster way of doing the wrong thing. And so companies are faced with this sort of difficult choice. Do I sell what people want to buy, which is a way of staying in business, but not really a way of doing a lot of good? Or do I try to convince people to buy something new and different, which is risky, because if they're not convinced, then you lose the company and you go out of business. So there's this kind of dilemma where companies need to have very powerful ways of reaching their audience if they're selling something that's transformative and that's based on learning sciences, because it's not familiar to people what's going on.
But can you share with us some examples of some like interesting innovation in education that you might have seen on these startups or some projects, maybe that will give some insight to our public?
Now, the National AI Institutes that I mentioned earlier are developing some interesting things. They have the luxury of having government funding, so they don't have to sell it right away. One of the projects within the institute that I'm the associate director for research for is a tool called SMART. And SMART deals with situations where you're asking students to do an essay to show their understanding of something complicated that you've been teaching them. And SMART is not an AI that writes the essay for you. That would be a mistake, because then you're not learning to think. You're just learning to tell the AI to think for you. SMART takes what you've written and then provides feedback on it. It says, well, there's these 4 important aspects to what you're learning, and you got 3 of them here, but the 4th one is missing. So you need to go back and look at this, this, and this, so that you can improve the essay that you wrote. There's another tool that's being developed by a different national AI institute that helps with what in the US is called project-based learning, active learning, where students work together in small groups and they're designing something, or they're discussing something, or they're building something. And it's hard for the teacher to do project-based learning, because if you've got 10 different groups in the classroom and you can only be in one group at a time, how do you know which groups are in trouble, and how do you know how to come and help them? This institute is developing AI-based tools that sit in each group. They don't participate, they're not active, but they listen. And then they can communicate with the teacher and say, my group is struggling, please come and help. And the teacher comes over, and most of the time the AI is right, that there is a problem, and then the teacher has a way of being effective. So that's an example of innovating rather than automating, of taking a form of teaching that we know is more powerful, but we know is hard to do, and developing a tool that makes it easier.
Fascinating projects. I'll be very pleased to get to know more when I make my postdoctoral research in the US. That will be very lovely. But
Well, for those of your viewers who are interested in the Silver Lining for Learning series that we've discussed, we just did 4 different episodes on 4 of the 5 national AI institutes, an hour on each. So if they have a chance, they could look at September, October, November 2024 shows and learn about those AI institutes through that.
oh, marvelous. Thank you very much. And we'll for sure add all the links here from your webpage, your work, the National Institutes, and all that you have cited. That is really interesting for all of us. And besides that, you were talking a little bit about how AI will change jobs. And I would like the final words of our show, that maybe you could talk on how do you think AI will be changing our job as teachers, as professors?
That's a really good question. And it is the central theme of the institute that I'm part of, which is about adult learning. So we're building different kinds of assistants that people who teach adults could use. There's an assistant that if most of the class has succeeded in learning something, but there are a few people who still need help, it's like a tutor that can help them. There's another assistant that's like a virtual teaching assistant, that students have many, many questions about deadlines and strategies and so on, and the AI can take over answering all those questions instead of the professor having to do that. There's library assistants, there's laboratory assistants, there's assistants for doing assessments. There's even a social assistant that in an online class suggests possible learning partners to students, sort of like an intellectual dating service for, having good people that you can work together with and learn. Now, I'm at the center of all those assistants, and I can be de-skilled or I can upskill. If I just let the assistants do all those parts of my job and I spend my time doing something else, like going to faculty meetings or doing more research, I'm de-skilled. And in fact, the students may feel that my classes aren't very good because they miss the human connection. But if I instead upskill, if I say, I'm going to learn more about the different cultures that my students have so that I can better understand their perspective, I'm going to learn more about them as individuals and what their hopes and dreams are so that I can advise them better, so I can teach them better. Those are things AI can't do, but those are things from an IA perspective that I can deepen. So I think it's an exciting time to be involved in teaching, because these assistants can take away some of the boring and routine parts of the job and open up for us the really fun and important parts.
I'm very happy with your words because it fills me with hope. But unfortunately, we have come to the end of our show, of our edition of interview edition. So thank you very much, Christopher Diddy, for joining us in our show. And I will advise you and hope you follow us on our YouTube channel if you want to check some more other interviews we have. E muito obrigada a você que acompanhou a gente em mais uma edição do programa IAgora Entrevista, onde nós tivemos a honra de conversar com Christopher Diddy. E muito obrigada a todos mais uma vez. E convidamos vocês a seguir o nosso canal no YouTube e assistir também o nosso programa pela UNB TV.